The Green Gables shore and the Red Sands shore can be covered very comfortably from any place centrally located within that area. There are many locations available, including the National Seashore in Cavendish. We decided to stay up in the Rustico, North Rustico, and Cimbria area at a commercial campground. Everything is Anne of Green Gables. This is a very populous tourist area, and in the summer it is cram-packed. In Cavendish, the Anne epicenter, we take in the National Park Shoreline Boardwalk, created for bus tourists to view the ever-receding shoreline. Placards tell the story of the island's creation when Pangaea broke apart to form our modern continents. For more on this story, visit our excellent Newfoundland-Dover Fault video describing plate tectonics and continental drift. 12,000 years ago, after the glaciers melted and the land rose, relieved of the glacier's tremendous weight, seawater drained sufficiently to reveal this island off the New Brunswick and Nova Scotia coasts. As mentioned in the Shipbuilding Museum video, when England discovered a new colony overflowing with old-growth forests, wood became the valuable commodity, resulting in stripping the land of all trees. What we see today is open farmland, residential and town plots, and new forest growth. Traveling along the North Shore Road, we visit familiar stops and the Country House B&B, where we spent our honeymoon and visited with the owners on many of our trips to the island. The birthplace of Lucy Maude Montgomery, located near New London, a first stop on the Maude Trail, inspires us to delve deeper into the people and events that shaped her early life.
Sounds good.
So this is the home of Lucy Maude Montgomery's birthplace. So she was born here November 30th of 1874 in the upstairs bedroom. Just on the wall right over there. On the left side was her father, Hugh John Montgomery. He grew up down the road in Park Corner. His family home is now the Montgomery Inn of Ingleside. On the right side there was her mother, Clara Woolner McNeil. She grew up in the homestead in Cavendish, and her parents were the postmaster and the post mistress down there. When Maude unfortunately was a baby, her mother did come down with TB. So when she became too sick to take care of herself, as well as the home and Maude, she moved into her parents' home in Cavendish. And that's where she passed away at the age of 23, when Maude was just 22 months old, so almost 2.
Born November 30th, 1874, the daughter of Hugh and Clara Montgomery, Maude was moved into the care of grandparents Alexander and Lucy McNeil near French River when Clara died of tuberculosis. Near French River, the family home and Anne of Green Gables Museum continued our rediscovery of the author's life. We find that Lucy despised the name Lucy and preferred to be addressed as Maude. The museum leads us to her private room with a view out Campbell's Pond, the namesake for the pond Shining Waters prevalent in the Anne of Green Gables novels. much of the museum's rooms are off limits because descendants still live on the premises. Our favorite remote and pleasant visit near the museum is the Cape Tryon Lighthouse.
You see that corner with his wings outstretched?
Shoreline scenes in the Green Gables movies were frequently made at this lighthouse. The two fishing harbors of French River and New London typify those dotting the PEI shores. Colorfully painted shanties harken views of rugged fishermen hauling their catch, be it lobsters in the short lobstering season, to blue mussels, scallops, and oysters, and the deep sea boats bringing in tuna caught by enthusiastic tourists. We always travel through this area for the eye candy. The PEI countryside has an immediate calming effect coming off the Confederation Bridge. A drive through Cavendish on Route 6 takes us past tourist traps and Green Gables themed recreations. The church where she attended and met her minister husband is also preserved. Our goal was the North Rustico Harbour and the Rustico Promenade, a boardwalk built in 1996 by the Lions Club for the benefit of residents and tourists alike. The length of 0.68 mile one way is not a strenuous hike, but provides a pleasant view of an active fishing harbor. The hungry find two fabulous seafood restaurants at the end of the harbor's point. Closer in town is Doran's Seafood Market, perfect for live and cooked lobsters, scallops, blue mussels, and many other fresh-caught seafood. Further along is the Fisherman's Wharf Seafood Buffet. We've been there many times, but we are withholding our appetites this time for the new Glasgow lobster suppers. They also offer a multi-course fixed-price dinner. Victoria by the Sea. We visit at low tide, where people are out clamming. The necessary first stop is to get a picture of their famous lighthouse. And then we see the pier with their local restaurants. We check them all out. Okay, your primary dining options in Victoria by the Sea. The Lobster Barn, and Casa Mia. And we decide on the Lobster Barn. And then the rest of it. Following lunch, we take a quick look at the harbor and the homes lining the shoreline. And then we start our visit up through the main street where all of the gift shops are located. And this is the Victoria Playhouse. Plays, musicals, and concerts are held here throughout the season. We visit some of the shops that line the streets. The chocolate shop, where you can get all kinds of wonderful chocolates. chocolate. Unique gifts. Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Face on your mug.
Victoria by the Sea, a shopper's paradise. Since we are at Victoria by the Sea, the Island Lavender Distillery, Lavender Farm, located in Barnshaw, is close by, where visitors can harvest their own lavender. That's lavender. And visit the gift shop for lavender-based products like soaps and essential oils. Hi. And to top off your day at the Red Sands shore, make a visit to the Matos Winery and Distillery, a short hop from Victoria and the Lavender Farm. There, you can sample red and white wines made from their very own grapes. If wine is not your thing, maybe a fruit or herbal-infused vodka liqueur will tickle your taste buds.
So here we do 3 wines. We do a Chardonnay, a Rosé, and then the Gamay Noir is our red. And then we do 2 dessert wines, a Strawberry Chardonnay and a Wild Berry Gamay. It is just our wines, so they are sweeter than the plain wine. And then we do 3 spirits, anisette, which is like your Sambuca, but in the cooling process, the sugar crystals form. So when you're done with this, you could pour a nice plain vodka in it. And then this is similar to your Grand Marnier, maybe a little milder. And then the Bagasso is like an Italian grappa or moonshine made out of the grapes.
Okay. So how many of the grapes are actually grown here?
They're all grown. They make what they grow.
Before our days of tab traveling, we could leave home in Vermont at 3:30 a.m. and arrive at the new Glasgow lobster suppers in time for our first lobster dinner in ages. The night and day difference in lobster taste and texture between the Red Lobster chain or any other inland seafood restaurant, and that at any shoreline restaurant, makes this long drive worthwhile. The dinners are complete with soup, salad, all-you-can-eat blue mussels, lobster, drink, and dessert. How many lobsters do you go through in a typical evening?
We can serve up to 500 people. So
And where do you keep all of your lobsters? Do you have a pound downstairs?
we have our own saltwater pound, and it holds up to 20,000 pounds of lobster.
How many?
20,000.
That's a lot of lobster. Served cafeteria style with many other enthusiastic visitors. PEI locals, though, either catch their own lobsters or barter from fisherman friends and avoid tourist-filled eateries. We enjoyed the New Glasgow dinner because the food is always fresh and the staff is prompt, courteous, and willing to make any meal changes for the customer, except no seconds on the lobster. You can order anything from a 1-pound lobster to beyond 3 pounds, depending upon your appetite and budget. we typically get 1.5 pounds, yielding a satisfying meal. Anything beyond that tends to be a bit tougher. Ask me or a local how I know. Price may seem steep until we as Americans consider the exchange rate and how much food you can get. Maritime summers are alive with music. You can find concerts at the Victoria Playhouse, and then the Indian River Festival at St. Mary's Church. And the highlight of it all are Ceilidhs. We find them on the west side, we find them on the east side, and we find them in the center. The most famous, the Stanley Bridge Women's Hall in Stanley Bridge, the Sterling Women's Institute and their community hall, hosting Ceilidhs practically every night of the week except for Sunday. Reservations are highly recommended, but if you don't make them, get there well before the 7:30 showing. Over the years, we have listened to many different groups. One of the most famous is Richard Wood. We heard the Caisson Trio,